Hi, and welcome to part 2 of Melanie's chevron gown from Gone with the Wind. Before we get into the video, can I just say to everyone, I've decided to keep the pattern challenge video open for another week while I work on this project. So if you haven't yet voted for your favourite pattern, please head over to that video and do so. And now, on to the video. In this one, I cover the making of the skirt. In the first video, I spoke about not being very happy with the satin that I had for the stripes. So we went to have a look around the shops in Soho. None of them really had anything that was suitable or in my price range. But we went to Borovik's, which has been there for a long time, and it's one of the few fabric shops that has survived the gentrification of Soho. And we did find a beautiful silk Duchess satin in there, but it was way out of my price range. It was £40 a metre, but it was the perfect colour. So instead we've got this one, which is a paler blue, but it still works within the realms of the dress. This is the pleating board I've made to make all the trimming. It's the first time I've used this technique, and I found it harder than I thought, and I think that's because the pleats are so small. It was rather hard to bend the paper into the pleats. I followed the instructions that I found online, which was to pleat it all up, press it, and then glue it onto another piece of the paper, which I did and kept weights on it overnight. But as you can see, it's warped, and when I did the first bit of pleating, it all just started lifting off the backing. So I've ended up having to actually sew the pleating card onto the other card underneath on each side. So hopefully this will work. So I'm going to pleat some of the fabric now. And the best way, as I've found out, to push the fabric into the pleat is to use some sort of card. So I'm just using a travel card. And I lift the card just to start it off to get the fabric in. And I found, for me, the best way is only to maybe do 4 or 5 and then press it, rather than trying to do a whole series of them. And when you press it, you just need to let it cool for a little bit before you move on to the next section. I'm going to sew on either side of the strip to hold the pleats in place. This is the pattern that I made to work out the scale and size of a decoration on the skirt. This wider one is the pleated diamond, and this one is the narrower plain satin diamond. I don't know if you can see it, but the pleated diamond is actually shorter than the satin diamond, and this was to allow for the lace that goes around the edge, so that then this will bring it to the same size. I made a pattern from this which I've now pinned onto the pleated piece, and I'm going to sew either side to mark my sewing lines and then cut this out, and then out of the length of fabric I should be able to fit in 2 of these sections. I've made up 2 halves of the square, and now I'm going to join these together. There's a completed square. Now I'm going to sew the lace on around the edge. I've made up the satin band, so I'm now pinning it onto the fabric, referencing the pattern that I made previously. Now that I have one section of the skirt decoration in place, I'm going to start hand sewing it on. The skirt decoration is now complete. It's taken 4 days, working 10 hours a day, and it's all hand sewn. I'm now going to start pleating the skirt waistband area. If you look at photographs of the dress, the pleats face forward at the front and face backwards at the back. But there is no clear photographs of where the change of direction pleat comes, so I think I'm going to place it sort of around the side seam area, maybe slightly backwards of there. I'm only going to pleat up one side. I'll then take it off the mannequin, undo the pleats and mark the pleats on the other side, pleat it all up and then sew it onto the waistband. I've sewn the skirt onto the waistband and trimmed it down. I'm now going to sew on the covering for the waistband. This is a strip of fabric which I sew on the inside of the waistband. I then flip it over and turn in the bottom and top stitch it in place. And here's the finished skirt. I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. It has been a lot of work. The pleating was really tricky. As I said before, it was the first time I've done this method of making and using a pleating board. But once I found my method, it became a lot easier. The placket at the back fastens with hook and bars. I've done this because when I saw an original dress from Gone with the Wind, this is how the skirt opening fastens, so I've done the same here. That's it for this video. Please join me for the next one where we'll be working on the bodice.